Okay, so now I'm going to go over with you a little bit more about about the speaking part two, and do a few examples for you and talk to you about note taking. Because a lot of students don't understand the value of note taking. When you're able to take notes when you're able to take notes in a really organized fashion, it really, really, really helps you to be able to speak fluently, clearly, and without any kind of pausing and hesitation. And that's what you have to do in order to be able to score very well. You have to do it that way. There's no other way around it. There's no shortcut. You have to do it that way. All right, so when it comes to part number two, as we know, in this part, with part number two, you're going to be given some questions, right? Like a topic card or a cue card, like to call it sometimes. And on that cue card, you're going to have several questions that you have to answer. It's like one main question and then about 3 or 4 subparts to that main question you have to answer. You always are going to have like 1 minute to prepare your answer, and then you have to speak for up to 2 minutes. Now, some people ask me, well, do I have to speak for the full 2 minutes? Yeah, you should try to. You should try to end up between 1:45 and 2 minutes. That's what you should be trying to do. If there's something in the question you don't understand, you can't ask the grader, what does this word mean? You cannot do that in part number two. All right, you can't do that, and more importantly, if you have to do that, your grade's gonna go way down because you're showing that you don't have vocabulary, that you can't understand a basic question. Okay, so you can't ask questions. So that's why it's important for you to really spend a lot of time practicing reading through all the part two questions, so that all the vocabulary and all the vocabulary is very relevant to you and also understandable to you, so that way you don't have any issues on the real exam. You want to make sure that when you're doing part two, you speak in complete sentences, right? Don't speak in half sentences or fragmented sentences. Speak in complete sentences. Take notes. Speak from your notes. Use a variety of sentences, okay? All right, so let's take a couple of examples. When I take notes, when I'm looking at a question, I take notes. Like this is an example of a part two question here. Describe your first mobile phone. Please say how old you were when you got it. When and why did you buy it? How did you feel when you first got it? Okay. So when we're looking at this question, for part number two, what we have to do is we have to be able to answer these questions. And now what I do is I create a box. Like what you see right here. And then in the first part of the box, I'm describing my mobile phone, right? And then in the second part of the box, I'm describing how old I was when I got it. And then the third part of the box, when and why did you buy it? Okay. And in the fourth part of the box, I'm describing how I feel. So this is what you're doing within 1 minute. Okay. You're writing this information down in boxes, and you want to try and get as much as you can. I have 4 boxes because most of the time they're going to be 4 parts. Okay. There are 4 parts. And each box represents one of these questions. First, I have to describe the phone. Then I have to talk about how old I was when I got it. Then I have to talk about when and why did I buy it. And then I have to talk about how did I feel. So 4 parts. And you see that I've addressed all 4 parts. Get as much as you can in those 4 parts. Okay? All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to speak and kind of show you how to really answer the question. I want you to really listen for the quality of the sentences that I use. You're going to see me. You're going to hear me use compound and complex sentences, and that's something that can really help your grade. Okay. All right. So listen carefully, and listen out for my fluency and my coherence and things of that nature. And I will go ahead and begin giving my response right now. Although I have had many phones during my lifetime, I would definitely say that I remember the very first mobile phone that I acquired. It was a Nokia 450, which is a flip phone of a very old design. This phone is very funny when I think about it now, because back then I was only able to text on the Nokia 450, since there was no ability to take photos or have music on this little simple flip phone. I definitely remember that I was a teenager of about 14 years of age, and in my neighborhood I was one of the youngest people to ever get a cell phone. My father ended up buying this cell phone for me for my birthday. Earlier that year, he had told me that if I get very good grades in school, that he would buy me a cell phone for my birthday. And so when my birthday came, I saw a box sitting on the table. And I went to go grab the box, shook it a little bit, and heard something moving around inside. So I tore open the box and then began crying immediately, because inside that box was that little simple Nokia 450. My father had kept his promise. I was so excited when I got this phone. I was running around, jumping everywhere, hugging everybody, and so I decided that I would immediately run outside and show all my friends my brand new Nokia 450 phone. They all congratulated me, and we took our turns calling our homes and speaking to our parents. So I definitely remember my first mobile phone, the Nokia 450. Okay, so that's an example of a response that you can give for part 2. It should sound like that. And it was very easy for me to do because I had my material prepared in my boxes. And I talked about the information in box 1, then I moved on, then I talked about the information in box 2, shifted, talked about the information in box 3, shifted, talked about the information in box 4, wrapped it up. Okay, when you heard me speaking, if you go back and play it again, you will hear I started out with a complex sentence with although. You heard me use which, and you can create some adjective clauses and compound sentences, right? That's what's going to help you to be able to get a really, really good score for part number 2. Doing it this way, doing it in this design. Okay? You want me to do another one? Huh? You want me to do one more? All right. Here is another example. Here's another example of a part 2 question. And it talks about describe a paid work you or your friend had done. You should say when you did that, where and how long you did it, why was the work important. Here's part number 1. I'm describing the work that me and my friend did. Part number 2, I'm describing when I did it. Part number 3, where and how long we did it. Part number 4, why was it important to us, right? So I have my 4 boxes, and when I begin speaking from my 4 boxes, you will be able to see that we're able to just follow from box to box, creating sentences from the information that we have here. That's what you have to be able to do very well. You have to be able to create sentences from the information that you're given. Okay? All right, so now I'm going to set the clock on 2 minutes and try to give you a very good, clean response that you can model yourself after and be able to get that really, really high IELTS score. I definitely recall my friend Kevin and I really doing a great job when we were young for some neighbors in our neighborhood. Actually, the work that we perform, I would probably classify as lawn work. If you don't know what that means when I say lawn work, it's actually where you go around mowing the grass and cutting the shrubs, which are small trees, and just taking care of flower beds and things like that around the homes of people. We also did a little tree cutting, which was a lot of fun back then. We did this work in the summer of 2014 during the very, very hot month of June. We were sweating so much when we were doing this outside work. But we did it almost every day that summer because we were so proud and happy to have jobs that we got money for. We primarily performed our services in the neighborhood where we lived, on the west side of Detroit. We would go around to several houses in the neighborhood and leave our information with a note or a letter, or knock on the door and ask people if they wanted our help in regards to taking care of their lawn services. We did this for about 2 months. It was during the summer, and we had 2 months off before we had to start back in school. And so we decided to use those 2 months to do this work. I'll never forget how significant it was for us to have those jobs, because we earned our own money. And when it came time to return to school, we had saved up so much money that we were able to buy our clothes, buy our school supplies, and everybody just was surprised by how well we looked at the start of the school year because of those jobs. So that's the job that my friend and I had done. Thank you. Okay, so that's another example of a part 2 question. Okay, and that's how you want to be able to respond. Get through it all. Get through everything. Okay, so thank you so much for participating, and now we're going to move on. Talk to you soon.